Greetings and peace. I hope you and yours are doing well today, wherever you might be watching this from. Now, the topic of today's discussion will be a review, analysis, and critique of what I was able to learn from the book The Way of the Superior Man by Deida, if I'm not saying the name correctly. I was encouraged to read this book by somebody very near and dear to my heart, whom I love very much. And I'm taking the effort to honor their request. I patronized the author, I purchased their work, got the book, took my time reading it, understanding it, and the perspective of where the author was coming from. Now, I'm somebody that comes from a Sufi Islamic background, which is Islamic mysticism, and also from a Masonic background as a Freemason. So before I start anything in the video, that I represent myself only as a free man under free speech in a free society, and any of my words do not represent any Sufi order or any Masonic organization. And also under the copyright laws and of critique and education, and also the consumer laws of someone who has patronized the author and bought the book, I wanted to give my honest analysis of it. So if you're not having the aspect of an open mind to learn, unlearn, learn and unlearn at the same time, then I'm giving you a heads up, because I'm going to review this book from an Eastern point of view, since I come from the East, living in a Western society and knowing the roles of men and women, what makes a man, what makes a woman. So I've seen different aspects of this world, whether living in the East or here. So I've been able to see the world from both sides of the spectrum. Now, the author comes from a Western approach as a Western author, and my friend who recommended this to me is also from the West. So maybe I was able to see or identify things that my friends could not. So please bear in mind, have an open mind before you watch this video. And just like the author gives you a introduction of caution before he starts the book, I too will give you a few seconds to do that before I start the video, or basically starting this conversation. So please don't be offended. If you want to have a conversation with me, my email's in the description below. You can email me 50 times a day and I will answer all your emails. I just don't enable the comments because of myself as a Pakistani Muslim and Mason. You have to deal with a lot of trolls and a double whammy that I'm dealing with. Because in certain aspects of American society, the truth is, no matter what I say or do, or what I try to accomplish, they will never accept me. And that's the unfortunate reality. But hopefully in my lifetime I can change that. So, without further ado and all the disclaimers and intros out of the way, now we'll get into the review of this book. And this is I really enjoyed this book. There were parts of it that I wanted to critique as well. I'm sure the author will be open to that. Somebody who is comes from the superior mindset, as acclaimed. So the aspect of this book was easy to read. It's broken down into short chapters. It has about like 50 chapters, but it was an easy read. I was able to read it in approximately 3 to 4 hours on my day off. So I was able to enjoy it, get through it. It was an easy read. It didn't take that long. And it's divided into basically 7 parts, 7 categories, 50 chapters, and about 200 pages. And what I was able to do was I took notes down of each points that stood out to me. And both good and bad. You know, you have that duality and polarity like the author expresses. So I will get into those points and I will discuss each step by step with my own personal Sufi and Masonic analysis and perception of it. So I took about 4 pages worth of notes because I really wanted to honor my friend and give an honest analysis of this book and its teachings. So we go from the aspect of the intro, where you have men and women outgrowing their stage of bread earner and submissive housewife. Now, coming from the East, there's a different point of view that I have come across, where the woman is the nurturer, she's the caregiver of the children and other things, and she knows the man is the bread earner, the protector. Now in the society, when both are working, there's less people having children, there's less commitments of families being made. There are more single fathers and single mothers because everyone wants to be dominant. So that's one part that I disagreed with, because I mean, he's coming from his Western approach, so in his eyes and the eyes of his supporters, he's right that about the men and women being on an equal playing field. Yeah, that's all that is fine. But this society has kind of reversed, from what I've seen here in America, that this society has kind of really reversed things, where the men and women don't have that actual connection with each other anymore. They just don't have that love, that understanding, that bond of what it is that God had gifted the man with his abilities and attributes, the bread earner of the family, and many other things as the protector, and the mother being the nurturer, the caregiver. And now we're being taught that those things don't matter anymore. The Western individualism, just worry about yourself. Second point from the intro that stood out to me: masculine man being attracted to married women and teenage girls. Now this is, I don't agree with that, because in my background, we're taught that heaven lies at the feet of your mother. And when you love and respect someone, you give them their dignity. You lower your gaze when somebody's not covered or they're showing their body to you, because it's the aspect of being a dignified, godly man. The superior man is the one who is connected to himself, know thyself and know thy Lord, from the Sufi approach, and one that is connected with God, which is something that is very lacking here in Western society, from my perception, in my opinion. So I disagreed with that part about the aspect of being attracted to married women and this other stuff. So you also have this aspect of being unfaithful, because I've worked in many places here, and there would be so many women married in relationships that would approach me in preposition, and I would always deny. I would tell them, do the right thing and be loyal to your husband. And that's what's lacking in this society today, that men and women are not of their word. It's all about me. How can I benefit myself? How can I get off financially, sexually, emotionally? They're all just living in the moment, not looking at the grand scheme of things. Third point in the intro: macho with no heart, wimp with no spine, everyone is different. Now that's my note, everyone is different. The 2 points that I got from him was that you have two types of men in the West, I think: macho with no heart and a wimp with no spine. But then again, you have a society where if everyone was the same, this world would be a boring place. Almighty God is the point within the circle, and then that point within the circle, everything around that circle, whether it be religious, philosophies, ways of life, cultures, different types of men and women, it's a different tapestry of colors and patterns that's to be celebrated, not condemned or looked down upon. So, all that out of the way, now we go on to part 1 of his book, which is A Man's Way. So, he goes to the aspect of man learning to enjoy the emotional drama, and the aspect of living as if your father were dead, or not living up to his expectations, which I just found that strange, because in our culture, we're taught to respect our parents, respect our elders, respect our fathers, and we have a society here, maybe he's talking from the Western approach, that have many households that don't have a father. So maybe he's addressing them in that manner. But I don't agree with that mentality, that live as if your father were dead. Because your father is basically, from our point of view, he's the one that teaches you right from wrong, good from bad, how to be a man, how to honor your women, how to honor your daughters, your sisters, your wife, all of those things. And his expectation is you do what works for you. You do in your career what you're good at. How do you earn an honest living, where you can earn an honest living without hurting anybody, and you're not demonizing anybody. So I disagreed about that part with the father being dead, and men learning to enjoy the emotional drama. Men are human beings too. I didn't agree with that. What about a man who's constantly being emotionally played by a woman, who's telling him that one day you're my friend, one day that I love you, and next day I love somebody else? Then that man ends up going and overdosing on something because of that hurt, of that love he gave that woman. But in the end, the woman gave him nothing but neglect, thinking that she was secure in her own right. And this man ends up overdosing. Now she's living in guilt for the rest of her life. So that's the another aspect of the aspect of confusion that I've seen here in Western society, that why do you even play these games? For us, when you marry one woman, that is your woman for the rest of your life. You honor her, you cherish her, you protect her. She's the mother of your children, she's the caregiver. And you, as the superior man, from an Eastern point of view, you do everything you can to provide for her, the children, make an honest living, live a good, clean, moral life. That's pretty much it. You look at rich people, they're getting divorced, they're not happy in America. I go by the graveyard, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Pakistani, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, they're all in the same graveyard, 6 feet under. Now what matters is what good did you do for yourself and others. That's the real spiritual wealth, not playing emotional games with one another. So I disagreed with that part. So, hang in there. I got some positive things too about this author and what he teaches. But let me openly address this, and I hope you're taking the time to listen to me and hear me out. So, going on to the next point. Kiss your fears without hiding them, or basically waiting on them, or any of that. So, yeah, that's okay. You have to face your fears as the superior man to be able to be a better person, think better, know better, do better. So, see, there you go. There's something I agreed with. So the aspect is, the other one is man choosing his purpose over a perfect relationship. That's not always true, because in our faith in Islam, from the Sufi point of view, a man is not complete, or the superior man is not considered complete unless he has a woman in his life. Because our phrase is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, God, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Rahman is the feminine, Rahim is the masculine. Then both coming together, creating that energy of oneness, like Neo and Trinity from the Matrix. How Neo was able to become the one when the woman expressed love for him, right? He wasn't just catering to her every confusion and every mind game. It was her that expressed that love for him. Just like how in Islam, the woman has the right to choose who she wants to marry. So all those ideas are kind of the same, but told in different ways. All right, so the next point, the Western world and women knowing when you're dicking around. Well, that's not just true for Western women, that's women in general. Women have that intuition between them. They know when someone is, I guess, the energy that one man might give off. Which is another negative aspect that I've seen here is you're not taught to be loyal to one man or one woman, depending on whatever situation that you're in. It's all about for the man, it's how many women you can conquer. And for the woman, it's how many men she can be with, depending on her beauty and what she represents. Or I've also seen women who come from a abused background, especially from Western society, who have father issues. Then they grow up, instead of healing themselves, they end up jumping from one man to another, one relationship to another. And God knows how many good men they destroy in that process. And the abused ends up becoming the abuser, so the saying goes. And that I've seen that in women as well who have father issues. And they might have multiple children from multiple men, or they're jumping from one man to another, destroying many's hearts and spirits in the process. So if that really happened to you, heal yourself so you don't let that happen to others. If something happened to you in your childhood, anything traumatic, whether you're a man or woman and you grow up and you do that to somebody else, and somebody comes in your life to heal you, love you, and protect you, what does your childhood have to do with them? And why are you projecting that onto each relationship? Now, there was a man that I knew, one of my good friends that I went to school with, and he would have this issue when every woman he would be with, he would bring up his mother, because he was trying to find that comfort in that woman that he was dating. And 9 out of 10, his relations wouldn't work because of those psychological issues projecting from him and his mother, and I guess whatever took place between them. Same thing with a woman, right? There'll be an issue where the father was abusive, and she would always bring up that issue with each man that she's with, thinking that each man that she's going through, like a house of cards from one man to another, is there to heal her. But she herself is the architect of her own destruction when she's not choosing to heal herself. So That's one thing, my analysis so far of what he's saying and what I've seen here in America. So the only aspect is, only way to achieve that freedom is to thicken thin. Okay, I agree with that, because he says that for a man and women to have a good relationship, they got to stick with each other through the good times and bad times. But here I see that in good times they're all with you, but when there are challenges of trials and tribulations and turmoil, they all run away, right? So it just doesn't make sense. The people here have no sense of commitment. Not saying all. I've seen couples here, old school couples from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and 80s, who are still married, happily married. So not saying all Americans are like that. I'm saying like in the late 80s up until this point in the 2020s, my perception of what I've seen in terms of couples not sticking together. All right, so moving on to the next point. The true well-wisher male friend offers good example. And this is an example from Imam Ali as well, from Sufism. Imam Ali, peace be upon him, says that your true well-wisher is the one who will tell you your faults. He will not praise you or glorify you. A true man or a true friend in your life will tell you, hey man, this is what you're doing and this is what I want you to fix. Just like how I'm doing here, the aspect of, the author and his supporters. I thank you for listening to me with an open mind. I'm not hating on you. I chose the respect of patronizing the author and making an honest analysis of it. Nothing wrong with that. And the example that he uses in the book about the about the true well-wisher friend is a married man who's sitting with his friends, and he keeps telling his friends, oh, there's a girl that I know named Denise, and I'm fantasizing about her. And the male friends go, man, you've been talking about her for 6 months now. Why don't you just sleep with her and get done with it? Well, the true male friend, like I did with many of these women in these Western workplaces that I was in, would tell them, you're married. You took a vow before God to honor your woman and respect her and not break her trust or heart. That's what they would say. Not that, oh, just sleep with her and get it over with. Or if you're not going to be man enough, let it go. So I didn't like that example that he used. Respectfully saying, before any of you get offended, I'm giving you the same caution that he gives you in his book, that it's not for everybody. So same too shall go with this video. All right, moving on. Before dedicating to God, now this is from him, you have to go through roles of sexual partner, drugs, career, marriage, children, etc. All right, that's fine. You can dedicate yourself to God before that, because any man or woman that doesn't have God in their life won't have peace. In my culture, you're taught to put God first. That's why we're happy. That's why when we come here, our families are successful to this country, where we have joint families, we have the nuclear family system, which is not common here. And over time, while the Americans are not marrying or having children, the people from the East are coming here, establishing generational wealth, establishing homes, businesses, having children, getting married. So over time, you will see that change in the demographics. It's inevitable. Not just with Eastern families, but with Hispanic families and with Asian families, that I've seen that pattern, that those that come here have a hunger to establish something. So you don't need to go through that phase of drugs and having different partners and all that before you can dedicate to God. You can dedicate to God on day one, and then all those blessings, including a good, faithful, loyal, lifelong partner, will also come to you, including successes. But then again, he's addressing a society of traumatized men and women in America who can't even seem to get their own act right. All right. Children are a choice. Don't use family as an excuse. Be firm. His other point. All right. So we're taught that children are a blessing, which just goes to the point of which I said about the nuclear family and the change in demographics, which is inevitable. And people here, or Western countries in general, are barely having children because you're taught the aspect of fear, two people not sticking together, them having one mind of loving somebody, the next day they're jumping on somebody else. And there's even a statistic in American hospitals that a quarter of the babies being born is usually it's usually not the father who's the father of the children. So a man and a woman, let's say here in America, woman is pregnant, she's having a baby, and that's a statistic that I heard recently, that in the hospitals, quarter or 25% of the children in the whole ward is usually the individual that's supposedly the father is not the father. So there you go. You have that aspect of not being faithful in a society which is based on individualism. Let me get some coffee real quick. All right. All right, don't use family as an excuse. Be firm. Okay, be a man of your word. I can agree with that. All right, so the woman will continue to test you. And this, he uses the example of you making $1 million and you coming home, and the woman was like, okay, what does that have to do with me? Did you forget to get the milk for the house? So I just kind of found that amusing, because from an Eastern point of view, through your good times, bad times, ups and downs, because the woman is your mirror half, your reflection, the other part of you that completes you with God as that one, the complete being. So a woman, and from my perspective and my culture, when you suffer defeats, she suffers that hurt too. When you succeed and you win, she rejoices and celebrates with you. And of course, these are just measly tasks like go get the house groceries, go get the milk. Any responsible man is not going to be in this position where he's a millionaire and he forgot to get the house milk. That example didn't make sense to me. All right. And, that other point that he has, that your success doesn't mean anything to her. That's wrong. The woman who loves you, from my Eastern point of view, your defeats, your heartbreaks, your successes, she will celebrate with you. She will cry with you when you're in defeat. And she will hold your hand up high when you succeed. And an Eastern example that I can give to my Western friends is the example of Manny Pacquiao, the boxer, who's also a fellow brother Mason of mine. So I give him a shout out. He's a good man. So when Manny Pacquiao, his wife always stuck by him through day one, through his childhood, through his teenage years, professional life and the boxing life, him being a senator now. The wife stuck by him since day one. And that's a true woman. When he would suffer defeat in the ring, she would sit there and cry with him. And when he would succeed, she would lift his hand up high with victory, with their children and their happiness. That's the true woman who celebrates your defeats and successes and sticks by you through thick and thin. All right, moving on to page 2. So, women want a man who is free. You don't need a woman's approval to fulfill your mission. And I wrote a little annotation that this is the Western individualism mentality. So he also gives the fact that you're supposed to tolerate abuse from any woman that comes in your life, because she wants you to be the superior man and just be the provider and nourisher. Well, that's not true. You have good men, you have bad men. You have good women, you have bad women. It's like how I describe in my videos. You have the agents of chaos, that eternal struggle between light and dark. It's in all races, religions, groups, and countries in the world, not just in America. And also, it's not limited to the gender aspect too. You have some women who are in industries who are helping men abuse women. And then you have the other aspect of, I guess with the aspect of men being able to tolerate this. You need a woman who's there to love you, respect you, be on the same page as you, and you support her through thick and thin, and vice versa. So you have this aspect that a woman wants a man who is free. All right, now I can use the Epstein example, the woman that was next to him, his mistress that was always luring the other girls or women into his trap. So in the West, I've seen that battle between good and evil. It's not just limited to men, it's limited to women as well. Women who are part of societies and industries that hurt and demonize other women as well, instead of uplifting them. So this is that Western individual mentality that you don't need her approval to fulfill your mission. And I used the Eastern Pacquiao example from the Philippines, including what I've seen in my culture as well. You need a woman's love and support. A good woman will be there for you. through your heartbreaks. She's not going to bail out on you like they do here when you're suffering through bad times and only there for good times. So I disagreed with that. All right. That said, now we move on to part 2 of his book, Dealing with Women. Now he says women are not liars. And I disagree with that. Again, you have women that are honest, good women, who know their purpose, they're divine feminine, and they honor their man, they honor their responsibilities. And you have the ones that are lying and cheating, like I seen here in the West with the married women, who probably would be lying to their husbands, but would be sleeping with other men on the side, or what they try to do to me in the workplaces, but I always denied them, because I always saw that as a trap from the darkness. So the true woman, from my Eastern perspective, doesn't play games with you. She's not there to play a million mind games with you or there to test you with trials and tribulations. If she's not there to uplift you and help you become a man of God, then that's not a true woman, from my perspective. All right? And I'm in groups that honor both men and women, where men and women equally sit down together, especially in Sufi groups. And you don't look at each other with sexual intent, or that I want to ravish her or conquer her like what he's saying. You're there to uplift each other, learn from each other, be humble, connect each other to God. That's the purpose. All right. Praise. Now he's moving on to the aspect of praise your woman. And this is the aspect where, the individual that I knew, he was always doing that with a Western woman that he was dealing with. And of course, she was the one who propagates a lot of these teachings. And then she says, oh, stop doing that. You're praising me too much. So where do you win with these people? All right. Well, like, what do you want? Like, the Eastern men and women don't have this issue. They don't have this issue. You're on the same page through the good times, bad times. It's not a million mind games that one has to play with each other. And then they wonder why they're suffering mental issues. They're on medication. They have depression. They're seeing therapists. Because you're not being true to your true nature that God made you with. So if you want true spiritual wisdom, you go to the East. You travel to the East, like it says in Freemasonry. In the West, if you want materialism, superficial vanities, you're in the correct place. But if you can find the balance between those two, that will help you. All right, don't analyze your woman, and tolerating her leads to resentment. Okay? So if you're making a commitment to be with your partner and love each other and respect each other, won't you make the effort to analyze him or her and get to know each other, your weaknesses, your faults, your strengths, so you're there to uplift each other through those moments? Like he says, the true friend is the one who calls out your BS and helps you, even though they use the example of Denise, the married woman, which I disagreed with. All right. Encourage your woman to be the ocean. Okay. To be deep and giving and loving. All right. From an Eastern point of view, a man who loves and honors and uplifts his woman. All right. I can go with that. Smile, scream, and lick her face when she's upset. Really? What does that have to do? How's that going to help her when she's throwing a tantrum, especially with how I've seen some of the women here, that you just hug her, smile at her, and try to lick her face? Doesn't work. That's not realistic. A woman that you love, from my Eastern perspective, someone you sit down and you ask her, and you get to understand her strengths, weaknesses, how you as a man can help her fulfill her mission, be the divine feminine and woman of God that she's meant to become in this life, and how she can help you. Because it's not about it shouldn't be a one-sided thing. And that's what I see being promoted here, that it's, the woman has to give no effort. Everything is the one-sided man who has to do what he can and just tolerate everything that comes his way. That's why people here are suffering. That's the bottom line, because both have forgotten their original roles. All right. Moving on to part 3 of the book, Polarity and Energy. To relax with beer and inevitable attraction to all women. So, the true man avoids anything that changes the content of his thinking and his clarity. Now, beer or alcohol in Arabic is known as al-Ghul the demon, which changes your perception and thinking. And how many women or men have gotten into trouble over alcohol and beer. God knows how many. And 9 out of 10, they wake up with regret, because those are spirits. When you open that bottle, you see the little smoke coming out. Those are spirits that take over your physical vessel. And then it's that entity that's feeding off of lust, anger, fighting, domestic violence, you name it. If they stopped alcohol in America, you'd be surprised of how many problems would be solved. And it reminds me of this story, which it comes up in my mind like every day, that I see this woman who was a young college girl here in the Philadelphia area, and she was drinking, and then there was an older man who was drinking, and then they were both under the influence of Alcohol the demon. She ended up going with him somewhere, and he ended up choking her to death. And I still remember the hurt and the pain that I saw on her parents' face, knowing that that was their only daughter, and that's what happened to her over alcohol. And maybe that's what that man was symbolizing, to relax with beer and his attraction to women, and he ended up killing her. I disagree with that. I'm sorry. So the true man doesn't need that. He sticks to what his principles and who he is, what he stands for, and his purpose. So choose a woman who is your opposite. I disagree. You need to find somebody who's a mirror reflection of yourself. And the Sufi point of view, they tell you when God creates the souls, let's say he creates a male form, he also creates a female form, and she will resemble you in every sense of the way. Your thinking, your habits, so you can both opposites come together and grow. Just like how in the Western society now they have the concept of twin flames, or I guess soulmates or all that stuff. We already had that in the East for thousands of years, those teachings and those perceptions. Okay, honoring your woman. Other cultures allowing polygamy. So now he's saying that other cultures, they allow more than one wife. This is many of the aspect that I've seen in Western society too, where they say Muslims can have 4 wives. That's untrue. The only people who follow that principle are the rich Arab royal families, and they don't represent majority of Islam anyway. Not even all Arabs they don't represent. That's only a top 1% who have the money to provide for all of them and to do what they do. Majority of the Muslims and majority of people in Eastern cultures, they're happy if they have one good woman they can spend their life with, have children with, live a good life with. So him saying about the other cultures allowing that stuff, I disagree. You will want more than one woman. Again, disagree. If I find a good woman in my life, someone who can be the mother of my children, my wife, my partner, my life, I would dedicate whatever I can to her and help her grow too as an individual. It's not always about me. Help her grow, she can help me grow, and together we can create a beautiful life together. But you have this aspect of instant gratification here, where they just want to jump from one person to another. So I disagreed with that part, that you want more than one woman. Oh, and another part that he had, screw as many as you want. Now this is dangerous, because he's promoting the do what thou wilt philosophy here. This this is not healthy, because first you're saying to praise your woman and be the superior man, and then the superior man is basically this he's promoting this alpha misogyny type of individual that's not giving women any value. He's just seeing women as a screwing object, excuse my language. So if you truly are the superior man, and you see that respect of honoring your women and the divine feminine, like it says in our faith, that heaven lies at the feet of your mother, and you're supposed to give equal respect to all women in your life, and even give guidance to the ones who are astray, like I do with many Western women here, even the ones who try to break their marriage vows behind their husbands' backs. I discourage them. Be true, because God is watching you. Be true to your husband, because there's always a price to pay. You don't get away with anything. And he's saying screw as many women as you want. And this is a society where you have this perverted culture and mindset. You go online, there's videos of these different perverted men pissing on women, degrading them, slapping them, making them vomit, making them have mental breakdowns on the air, on videos, and put it online and ruin her life. Come on. Why do you think you people have no peace in this country? Because you do it to yourself. When you choose to go away from the aspect of the respect of the woman and the dignity that your mothers, your daughters, your sisters, your wife, all those people that deserve that, and you go past that, then you're saying you praise them, then you're saying screw as many as you want. That's a dangerous do without will philosophy, and to do whatever you want, however you want. And I disagree with that, because there is a law to everything. I can't just go out there and do what I want, or drive my car out there 100 miles an hour. I will get stopped by the authorities, and they will tell you, no, you can't just do without will and do what you want. There's a certain system, there are certain laws, there are certain things that keep mankind in order. So I disagreed with that. All right, moving on to, all right, let me get to page 3 of the notes. All right. Young women offer a special energy. Now he's using this example of the 18-year-old babysitter that, again, this is deranged and perverted. That there is a babysitter who's barely legal, and she's 18, fresh on the block, and you just have this fantasy that you want to ravish her, and which, you know, that I disagree with. That's a degenerate man. That's an unfaithful man to his family and his wife, which is, I'm sure it's common in the Western society. Each woman has a temperature, wife and her friend. So he gives this example in the book that there's when a man comes home and it's a hot day, and now he's dealing with a wife that has a fiery nature, a hot nature, and she's there like all over him, and he's like, yo, just leave me be. And then now the other friend comes up, there's a friend in the house, of course, female friend, and she offers him a massage, and he feels more relaxed with her. So he's basically saying, you can't have the same thing for lunch every day. Just like how people here, they have a hard time committing or sticking to one thing, right? One day they're with somebody, next day they're with somebody else, third day they're with somebody else. First day they'll tell you they love you, then they'll be your friend, then they love somebody else. Make up your mind. Be an honorable person, please. That's why you don't have any peace here. That's why I could, just here in my vicinity, I could name you countless single father homes or single mother homes. Why? If this teaching was really out there since '97, and it's been like, what, 20 plus years now? I have the 20th anniversary edition. Why hasn't this teaching helped Western men become the superior men, or the woman to know her essence? Why is there still suffering and heartbreak and abuse, or a woman who's been abused in her childhood and now she's jumping from one man to another, the abused becoming the abuser, destroying good men in the process? Vice versa with men. So coming from an Eastern point of view and seeing this stuff in this country of the men and women, it's very baffling to me. And I hope so far that you're sticking by and watching and hearing me out and understanding a different perspective, just like how I took the time to honor my friend's request and read and analyze this book. So I thank you. So part 4 of the book, moving on. What women really want. Choose a woman who chooses you. Better to move on. So in this part that he's saying that you have to choose a woman that chooses you. From an Eastern perspective, from Islam, I agree with that, because we're taught that a woman has a right to choose her husband, one that she clicks with, one that she can love and commit to for her whole life. And he's saying that if you're committing and doing everything you can for a woman and she's not giving you any feedback or response, better for you to move on, because 9 out of 10 she's not for you. And I knew an individual who was in that position here in Western society, and he was dealing with a woman from a traumatic background, and I guess she was just feeling the gist of jumping from one man to another, trying to find her healing and calling in life. He does whatever he can for her, and it's just not enough. One day you love them, next day you're their friend, third day you said you love somebody else. You hurt people in the process, people who never had that capacity to love. That's why I see so many men depressed here. They're hurt. I see it with my eyes, with the vision that God has granted me. And you have these people, they get hurt, who had never had the capacity to love a woman. Then they run into one, they do everything for her, and she gives him the whole 360 go around, and he ends up as a hurt man, possibly never to love another woman again. And that's a sin. That's a big price to pay in the universal karma, not just from a religious point of view, but never hurt anybody, or thinking that your ego and you're right all the time, and your need to feel secure all the time. In our eyes, that's shaitan, or iblis, the darkness. That's there to tell you that you're right all the time, whether you're a man or a woman. You don't have to hear anybody out. You have to use this 3-letter word, ego, which destroys relationships and other things, keeps you away and isolates you from people who love you, your family. So that's a path of destruction. And whoever is on that path, I urge you, look yourself in the mirror. Whoever is it that you hurt, call them, text them, message them, whatever works for you. And tell them and ask them for forgiveness, because that's when the healing will come in your life. And once you do that, then never vow to hurt anybody in that same process again. Either you're with it or you're against it. Not playing games or jumping around and not committing to anybody. That's a dangerous path for this life and the next, especially with the spiritual consequences that come along with it. That said, now he's on the aspect of what she says is not what she wants. Sexual yoga, forget what the woman wants, you are the dominant. So see, that's the contradiction. Because first you have the aspect of the author saying you have to praise her, you have to honor her, and now you have to live in this inverted reality of what she's saying is not what she wants, it's the opposite. And you are the dominant, what she wants doesn't really matter. So what are you really trying to teach the man or the reader that's trying to understand this book? To know thyself, to know thy Lord, to know thy divine feminine, divine masculine, which, as you see, is out of place in the West. Don't be with her if she's upset. So in this other aspect of don't being with her if she's upset and forgetting what she wants, contradicts the example of him, oh, did you forget to go get the milk, when the woman doesn't care about his success or his endeavors? Or if she's screaming, swoon her off her feet and lick her, scream and smile and tell her that you love her. All contradictions. A woman that loves you is not going to play these mind games with you. Trust me. From what I've seen in Eastern perspectives, where when you marry somebody, that's it. There's no such thing as child support or single mothers, single fathers, divorces. Not where I come from, and not with the families that come from there to here. They're still preserve that sanity and tradition and culture and boundaries and respect between the man and the woman. All right. Her complaint is content free. Be a man of your word. Yeah, that's fine. I agree with that. You have to be an honorable man, be a provider, be a lover, be a guide. Okay. She doesn't want to be number one. Be strong in your direction. And now he uses the example of the war, that a man is going off to war and the woman was like, oh, don't go. And he said, no, I have to go. And she realizes, his purpose and everything. So that's fine. I mean, I disagree with that to a certain example, because how many women here in the West cheat on their men when their men are off in the military or off to war? I know countless examples just here in the Philly area alone. I'll write a whole list for you, and I'll run out of paper too. So the aspect of she doesn't want you to be number one and she wants you to stay true to your purpose while she herself is cheating on you with the Western example or the perception that I've seen here, it doesn't work. The true woman, no matter what you choose, if she loves you through the forms of doubt, suspicion, strengths, weaknesses, good times, bad times, she's with you. Part 5, your dark side. Man searching for freedom to become one with your purpose and higher self, ousting darkness desires. All right, that's fine. To know thyself, to know thy Lord, the Sufi path, the Masonic path of self-improvement, of becoming better, getting close to God, to think better, know better, do better. I agree with that. That's okay. Owning darkest desires, to ravish your women. Now, this is a part that I disagreed with, because he's talking about, I guess, from this point of view from the West, that men and women have these rape fantasies where a woman fantasizes about being ravished and being held against her will, and I guess uh, being abused in a way. Same thing that a man, he wishes to do that to a woman. The true man, who is an honorable, godly man, in essence with his true divine masculine, the warrior mindset, like what he's saying, doesn't picture to do that to any woman. To any woman, she's a tender and gentle being, and you have to be, and he knows that she is fragile. He's not there to ravish her or destroy her or dominate her. And that's what you see promoted in these adult industries, where they're pissing on them and spitting on them and slapping them and doing all these degrading things. And then they have the nerve to say that we don't treat our women respectfully. Really? You got to look your own self in the mirror before you judge anybody else. All right, she wants the killer in you. All right, be the defender of the family, be the provider. I agree with that. All right, moving on to the last page of the points that I laid out. Only through your persistence, this is a quote I'm reading, only through your persistence, fearlessness, and loving service does the world yield to your efforts. So I agree with that part. You have to be a man of your word. Don't be scared of anything. Have a loving nature about yourself, and you get good results from your family, from your spouse, and the world. I'm okay with that. And I agree, there is truth to that. Now, part 6, feminine attractiveness. Know the qualities and gifts of both older and younger women. Beauty is within. Now, this is the part 6 and 7 when he starts making a little bit of sense from because the majority of this book, honestly, no offense to anybody, I just found it to be insanity. That's not what the true men and women represent. And it makes sense when I read some feedback on how even some women who read this book said that, their husbands read this book and it destroyed their marriage. So I guess everyone is different, even from different perspectives and analysis from different viewpoints. And I hope you've been open enough to understand where I'm coming from as well, in respect to honoring my friend and sharing the teachings of this book. So here it's saying that younger women have a different quality about them, older women are wiser. Okay. But again, that's the aspect of not being faithful. So you pick a younger mistress and an older mistress depending on your needs. Like he says, you have the cooler woman and the hotter woman. I disagree with all that. All right, turn your lusts into gifts. Now, I agree with that. Now, I made a video on this about 8-9 months ago. We have this concept in the East where you're not supposed to deplete your sexual energy unless you're doing it for the purpose of creating life or creating a child with your wife. Now, you have the brahmacharya movements in India. You have the Sufi movements in the Islamic point of view, where you're supposed to circulate your energies of goodness and bring that energy circulated up and down, and honor yourself with that life force energy instead of depleting it, watching adult videos or recreational sex or whatever else that is promoted here in the West, where they tell you that it's all normal. It's not normal. The true Mason, the true Sufi, the true godly superior man hones and honors his physical temple, because that you are the temple. And if your foundation is weak, your root chakra, that's the legs of your temple, you're going to fall down and break. So you have to keep in mind all of those things. You have to keep in mind and know when to circulate your energies and when to use them for procreation with your wife, whom you are legally married to under God's law. So the teachings that he's saying they're already in the East for thousands of years, so this wasn't anything new that I learned. Okay. Bow down to her. All right. So this is a contradiction where he's saying bow down to your woman. Now this is a contradiction which I'm pointing out when in part 3 in polarity he tells you do what you want and screw as many women as you want and praise her and lick her face and scream and all that. Okay. Now he's saying that you have to bow down to her and do all this stuff. Now the true man, from my point of view and my culture, he loves and respects his woman. And he honors her purpose, her gifts, cherishes her. And she in return does the same for him. The Eastern woman does that for the Eastern man and vice versa. I mean, here it's a completely different ball game. I've seen Western men who do everything they can for their women, or vice versa. The woman does everything for the man, but it's always some kind of a conflict. They just can't make up their mind. They're not happy. When you're not happy with your own self, you could have the most perfect man or woman come up in front of you, depending on who you are. You're still not going to be happy. You're still going to end up breaking their heart, breaking their trust, and then asking God, God, why don't you help me? And this basically relates to the aspect of the boat situation. There was a story that there was a man, and he was drowning in the ocean, and he kept asking God for help. And one boat came, he refused it. Second boat came, he refused it. Third boat came, he refused it. And each time he would refuse, he would ask God to send him help. All right? And then when he died, he asked God, why didn't you help me? He said, I did. It was you that refused to help. You can't blame me for that. So that's the aspect of, you have many spiritual, quote-unquote, women here in the West who's saying that they're trying to manifest a good man into their life. And when they do, they just play that same emotional and mental mind game and projecting their own abuse and tendencies onto them. And they end up hurting the man, and the man goes away, and she's alone again. And then she'll be with another one, then she'll go back to the square one again, square one, square one. So it's you. You got to fix yourself, especially here. If you really had the solutions, then you wouldn't have this issue of this custody battles, court systems, traumatized men and women, traumatized children who are growing up without those divine feminine and masculine leaders in their home, guiding them, nourishing them, educating them. You wouldn't have that. And thank God we don't have that problem in our culture, or the Eastern point of view. So part 7, you have the body practices. Protect and hone your life force energy. Okay, it's the same thing which I addressed, to breathe up and master the breath, master your energies, become one with the elements and beings around you. I agree with that, but nothing new. It's all in the East for thousands of years. But then again, the East is always neglected. Even in a lot of Masonic circles, they're always giving credits to the Greeks and the Romans, but they never give credit to the East, where a lot of these teachings were always occurring for God knows how many thousands of years. So that's where, even in my YouTube channel, I address those perspectives that they're refusing to address here, including what I'm seeing here. Good advice. Okay, he's giving you good advice to not masturbate or watch porn and all of that stuff. And he's basically giving you good advice, but again, it's nothing new. Now, some of the exercises he's teaching you, again, he gives you the caution in the beginning of the book that don't be offended, read it with an open mind, and consult a physician before you practice anything. So again, you know, the superior man doesn't cover their ass like that, excuse me. You tell it like it is, like how I always do in my videos. And there was an emperor from China who was practicing this, I believe, and this is something that comes from the East, including the aspect of Sufism and the men and women honoring their true divine nature. Okay, the true man is after discipline and truth. I agree. So see, I'm not disagreeing with anything. I'm just saying that there are some hidden gems in this book and teachings, but majority I found it at fault, from my perspective. All right, the true man and woman find outlets, hobbies, give each other space. All right, that's fine. Men have their own little groups and gatherings to help them feel more connected and learn. Women have their own thing. This is something that we already have. With even when you go to a mosque, you'll have men and women on separate floors. Women can do their own thing, have their sisterhoods. Men can have their brotherhoods, both helping each other connect to God, be one with each other, understand the true nature. That's what it's about. It's nothing else. All right, so I went through at least 4 pages of notes. I took the time, as you can see, to read this, analyze this, patronize the author, and reserve my rights as a consumer, as a free man, free speech, all that good stuff, to review this book and put its teachings out there. And I'm sure he's not coming from a bad heart or mind. All right, so if you're into this book, if you're into these kind of teachings, I'm not telling you to not patronize the author. Go for it. I got it. I paid in my money to read this book. So one thing that stood out to me was Coleman Barks, who had praised his work, the author of The Essential Rumi. And it's interesting that Rumi, I mean, the stuff that's in here, I don't think if Imam Rumi from the Mevlevi Sufi order, he probably wouldn't have agreed with many of these things, because he was all about God and honoring everything around you, not screwing as many women as you want. But again, Coleman Barks comes from the Western mindset. When he translated Rumi's works from Persian to English, he removed all references of Allah, God, and Islam to make it more appeased to the Western mind. Again, which makes sense that, you know, he had that bias. So again, hope I didn't piss any of you off by being the, you know, truthful individual that I am. I tell you like it is. I don't hold back any punches, because I know that this life is too short. We're here today and we're not here tomorrow. And if you're not living in your truth, then there's no point of your life. It's like what he says himself, live life fearlessly, so you could give the world your gifts. So that's what I'm doing. I'm giving the world my honest analysis of this from my Eastern point of view. Maybe many of my Western friends, brothers and sisters might not agree with this, but again, if we all saw life from the same point of view and we didn't agree with each other because we were not friends, or everyone's got to have the same points of view, then the world would be a boring place. There's always a differentiation of different things and patterns, so we can become one and we can become better. And I pray in my lifetime that I see the Western women and men get their act together and return back to that nuclear family mindset and honor the aspect of commitment, marriage, love, partnerships, being able to stick to one man or woman for their whole life, not hurting them, not traumatizing them, and just being able to be a man or woman of your word and stick with it, and not jump around and play with somebody's feelings and hurt their heart. The true spiritual man or woman that's finding his or her way back to God does not do that. And that's what I'm seeing here, and unfortunately, that's what I see being promoted in here, to screw as many women as you want. No, you gotta give respect. The man has his role in respect, the woman has her role in respect. Like we're taught, heaven lies at the feet of your mother. But here, it's screw as many women as you want. The true superior man is not that. He's not in a society where they're promoting all this nastiness online, where they're abusing women, and there are other women who are promoting and helping these industries as well, like I gave the Epstein example, and all this other stuff that's disgusting that goes on. And that's why there's no peace here. So again, please watch this video. It's almost at 1 hour. Please take the time to hear me out, understand me, and see where I'm coming from a different perspective. Just like how I gave this author my patronage and the respect to hear him out and analyze his work in the aspect of the critique. So I thank you, and I hope you all have a great rest of June and summer ahead. Thank you, and much love to all of you and your families. And if there's anybody that you hurt, tell them that you're sorry. Tomorrow is not promised to any of us. Don't be in that aspect of the ego of you're right and everyone else is wrong, and you need to feel secure. Be better than that. For God's sake, tomorrow is not promised. When you face God, you want to face God with a clean heart, knowing you didn't hurt anybody. So thank you again, and hope you're able to gain something from this.